Hi, and welcome to my channel, Busy Bee Natural Remedies, and I'm Karissa. Many of you know that, if you've been following me here for a while now, that I am all about finding natural ways to help my family stay happy and healthy all year long. And then I just did a video not too long ago on how do I raise my pets naturally. Well, I thought since we just got a puppy that, if I find some tips and tricks that will help to train a puppy so that they're not tearing everything up in your house, so that they're potty trained fairly quickly or crate trained quickly. If I find tips and tricks or I've learned things, that I'd share them with you guys, because if I knew the things I know today about raising puppies when I got my first puppies, which were Shih Tzus, I think a lot less things would have been destroyed. I think there would have been a lot less stress in having a puppy. I mean, to be honest, after you've had kids, having a puppy is like having a newborn all over again, which, I think now I understand why my husband was kind of like, I don't know about this, but, we've only had Bear, our new puppy, for a few days now, and everyone's like, oh, you gotta get them crate trained. Well, how do you do that, and how do you do it easily, and how do you do it with the least amount of stress? Because when you're stressed, then they're stressed, and then when they're stressed, they're not listening, and it just becomes a perpetual cycle. So there are some people that I follow. So Susan Garrett is a great dog trainer that I highly recommend. You watch her videos on YouTube and stuff. She gives great ways to help train your dog from puppy and getting them on a schedule, and then how to do all that so it's not stressful. So I highly recommend watching her. But there's some tips and tricks that I've learned just even from the breeders I got our dog from, that I didn't even think about, and it's like, oh my gosh, mind blowing. One, it saves money, and two, it saves time, and who doesn't love both those things? So what am I talking about here? When we train our dogs, a lot of people go and spend a ton of money on dog treats, right? Because you're thinking, well, I'm going to feed them their food, and when I train them, I'll train them with other treats because they'll love those treats, they'll listen to me, so they'll want those treats. And as I'm learning, that's actually a mistake. You should not be going out and buying expensive treats for your puppies. And here's why. Dogs, they will start to, if you start to give them something too much, they'll start to ignore it. I mean, even with their names, if you start to say their name too often, they start to not hear it because you've overused it. It's the same thing with treats. If you're trying to train them and you use a treat all the time and they don't have to do anything very difficult or hard to earn it, then they don't appreciate it. It sounds crazy, I know, but they're very much like people. If they don't have to work hard to get a high-end, high-quality treat, then they don't appreciate it, and then it means nothing to them. So to get them to keep training, when you keep giving them these high-quality treats, tasty treats, they won't listen anymore. So here's what I have learned just in my few days of working with Bear on what to do and what not to do. So one, getting those high-end treats, no, because even I went and got some treats thinking, okay, that's how we're going to train him. Yeah, no, after I was giving him those treats every time I was trying to train him, he didn't care about the treats anymore, and he definitely was not listening. So then I took a step back and said, what am I doing wrong here? And then it hit me. Dogs really don't care what they're eating. They just want to eat when they're hungry. So here's the schedule I now have Bear on. When we wake up in the morning, he goes out and he goes potty immediately. If he doesn't go potty, he goes back into his small area, which is like a playpen, and then I give him about 5 minutes, and I take him back outside again, and I put him in the dog run where we have them go to the bathroom, and I turn my back to him, so I don't give him any attention. So he understands that he's not going to get attention from me until he does what he needs to do. And sometimes if he's struggling, I will go in there and walk around with him, and then when he starts walking around following me, he'll start to sniff, and then he'll get his business done. But every time I put him there, I say, get your business done or go potty, and then, looking at Bear, making sure he's not waking up going, oh, we have to go outside. And so finding keywords, use keywords, but when you take them in there and go, make sure they go potty. And then once they're done going potty, then in the morning, don't get up and play with them. Take those minutes that, because in the morning when they wake up, they are hungry, okay? That is a fact, right? They want to eat, they want to drink water. So use that time to train them since they're hungry. So I just take his kibble, like little kibble like this, and I have them in like either my pocket or a pouch for kibble. And then I just take 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes tops to train him on the things I want to train him on. Like yesterday we worked on training him to be okay with a collar. And that was actually really easy. We only trained him for maybe 5 minutes, and all we did was put that collar, I took a bowl, and first I put these kibbles in the bowl by themselves. And yep, he ate those up because he was hungry and he wanted them. Then I took his collar and I put the collar like in a circle in that bowl, and I put the treats in the middle of the collar. So he was sticking his nose in the collar to get those treats. Well, I had him do that like 2 or 3 times. And then I took the collar out and I put treats in the bowl again, and while he was doing getting the treats, I put the collar on him. He didn't care. Didn't care. And then he didn't jump around trying to get it off. He didn't try and scratch it off. He was just like, whatever, it didn't matter to him. I already associated his collar with something he wanted, which was food. And I didn't use expensive treats. Just got his kibble and I put it in there. And that's just a simple thing. And if you want more ways to learn how to do that stuff, Susan Garrett, again, she is an amazing dog trainer on YouTube, and she can teach you all of these things, but those things work. And it makes sense that if you, first thing you do in the morning is train your dog for a few minutes. When they're hungry, they will listen to you and they will get their commands down. We did the same thing. When we tell Bear to come, because we're training him when he's hungry, now I can tell him to come and he comes to me without a treat. Dogs are extremely smart, and I don't think people give them enough credit. And keep in mind, your dog only knows what you teach it. So if you don't teach it that chewing on wood is not a good thing, you can't be mad at them that they're chewing on wood in your house. Yeah, you can be irritated, but if you never taught them that was not okay, and how do you teach them that's not okay? There's many different ways that you can approach this. Some people like negative reinforcement, some people like positive reinforcement, but I think sometimes if you do positive, they can start to get confused, like, oh, I'm getting rewarded for chewing on wood. So I actually like the method distraction. So I take, when they're about to go do something they're not supposed to do, I use one word. So in our family we go pop, 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 because going pop, 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 I'll never get mad when I'm saying it, really. Because they'll hear the inflection in your voice. So I try not to get mad, and that by saying that phrase, it's pretty easy not to get mad. And then anybody in my family can say it, even my kids can, to stop him from something. And when he does start to do something we don't want, and we say that phrase, then we immediately put something in front of his nose that it's okay for him to chew on, and we start playing with him. So then he realized, he's starting to wait, oh wait, they said blah, 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 it's getting his attention away from what we don't want him to do, and back on us, and back on something that we're okay with him doing. It's amazing how that works, okay? And again, reward him too. If you start using treats too much, even their kibble, so if they're not hungry anymore, they're not gonna train. So another way to kind of help train them is get them their toys that they love. They love to play. So if you are trying to train them, and then their reward for getting whatever you're trying to train them to do is to play with them for a few seconds, tug of war, whatever. It works. It really does. It's really not that hard. So now moving on to making your life easier when it comes to food preps. Yes, I like to try and raise my dogs as holistically as possible, which means I also probably am willing to do a little more food prep than maybe the average person is. But, if we could get away from just throwing kibble in their bowl and not thinking twice about it, that could help them tremendously in the long run. And let me explain how and why. So this actually helps with puppies as well, because they're teething. So what I do is I take their kibble, and since I'm having to transition Bear from what the breeders were giving him to the high quality food that I'm now giving him, I'm mixing his old kibble with his new kibble, but I'm also putting in the supplements, so the vitamins, so the Phytovite, which is what I give him. That gives him many nutrients and vitamins and minerals that he typically wouldn't get even from the highest quality of dog food, unless you literally cook it raw from yourself or order it from one of those high-end raw dog foods, and I just don't have money to do that. So I find him the best kibble I can afford, which for us is Kindful, and then I add those vitamins, which those vitamins are actually pretty cost effective. It's like a 5-pound bag, I think was, like $75, but it's going to last me like 6-7 months for all 3 of my dogs. So that's going to go really far. So I take that, I literally put his kibble into a food processor to grind it up into like tiny little dust, particles practically. And then I add in the vitamins, and then I add a little bit of water to make it a little mushy. And then I put it into things like these molds, and I put those in the freezer. This is great because you can portion out their food to know, okay, I'm going to feed you this much today. So for him, for example, he needs about 2 to 2.5 cups of food a day. Well, a lot of his food is going to come from training, but the part of the food that's not going to come from training, I'll still want to make sure he gets everything he needs. All I have to do is pop these out of their molds into his bowl, and it's great for puppies because it's cold and they're teething. So just like babies, they like that coldness on their teeth, and it's also harder, so it takes them longer to eat, so they won't eat so quickly. It's soothing on their teeth and gums, and they really enjoy it. And it's nothing more than their kibble and their vitamins. Again, they don't care, they're just hungry. So, and it's easy food prep. I do that that. And I have enough of these silicones that, you know, I can make like a week's worth of food, knowing how much I'm probably going to do training him and how much I'm just going to feed him directly. And all I have to do at night is, or in the morning, you know, when I feed him his actual food, not through training, just pop it in his bowl and he eats it. Which I'm like, great, when we go on vacation, if we go on vacation and need to leave him with somebody, I'll just make a bunch of those, put them in a bag, put them in the freezer, and say, he gets this many a day. Just make sure he eats that many a day. It's easy peasy, right? So cost effective because you're not spending money on expensive food. And you're prepping it all like in one day. You could prep it for a week. I mean, if you really want to, you could probably prep it for a month, depending on how much preparation. It doesn't take very long. I mean, a week's worth of food took me maybe 10 minutes to make, you know, 10, 15 minutes to make. And most of the time it took pushing it into the molds. And I was like, do more. I'm sure I'll get faster and faster on it. But that was something the breeder taught me, and was because it makes sense. The breeder has many puppies that they have to watch over and, you know, take care of. So finding quick ways to do meal prep is always a plus, especially if you want to try and go the holistic route and take care of your pets the best you can with them high quality food, which may mean that you do more than just throw some kibble into their bowl. Now, I'm not saying throwing kibble into a dog's bowl and calling it good isn't great, is not good. You know, to each their own. Everybody do your own research, decide what's best for your pet. But for me, I'm starting new with this little guy. I'm gonna do the best I can to give him the best quality. You know, knowing what I know now, doing all the research that I've done. One, I want to make sure he has the highest quality food and that I can give him. And I want to make sure that I'm training him right so that I'm not dealing with, you know, downfalls as he's a dog. Like once he becomes an adult, he has bad habits because I was too lazy to stay on top of teaching him what is okay and what is not okay. And I get it, we're all busy, it's hard to do. But, you know, if you can put the time in there, just in the few days that we've had him, I'm already having him start loving his crate, where when he's tired, he will just go into his crate. I don't have to tell him to, I don't have to put him in there. He just goes in there when he's tired. At night, I have got him almost sleeping through completely, and we're only on like day 5 with him where he doesn't wake up at all. That's pretty amazing, considering he's a puppy that just got ripped from his mom and his brothers and siblings. You know, he's just a very happy dog, and he's very easy. I mean, this whole video, he's just been sleeping, and it's because we played with him. You know, we woke him up, we took him out to go potty. He went potty because he's learning, hey, when I go into this dog run, I have to go potty, or I don't get to come out and play and eat. So he's learning that, so he's going right away in the morning. Then we train him for the first 10-15 minutes to, one, stimulate his brain, but also get him training. And as he gets older, we'll probably spend a little more time doing that. And then, you know, and he's getting his food because he's hungry, he wants it, so he's listening and he's doing. And then when he's all done with that, I do pop a couple of these into his bowl so he can have an actual full-blown meal until he doesn't want to eat anymore. And then we play with him. And we play with him until he's tired, and he very easy to tell when he's tired. And then he goes into his crate when he's like, okay, I'm done. And then he sleeps for like 2 hours. And we just do that every day. It's honestly, if I had known these tricks when I had my Shih Tzus, I mean, they weren't hard dogs to begin with, but being that we have an Australian Shepherd now who's going to be very high energy, I definitely think that this is going to pay off in the long run. But if you want to follow me on my journey with raising Bear and see what other tips and tricks I come along with, if you like this content, want to hear more, tap that like button, hit that subscribe button, and follow me for more at benaturalremedies.com.